Imagine there's no trauma. It's easy if you try. Nobody hurting or crying. Above us only sky. Right.
One of the interesting things about trauma is that it's stored in a part of the brain that's geographically as far away as you can get as the verbal centers. So it is very difficult to really process trauma through just talking about it. There have to be other things that go into that therapy. And music, again, because it covers everything, it's accessing even unconscious parts of your brain to help process. It's incredibly powerful. So
hello everyone, welcome to another episode on Your Health is Your Greatest Wealth, and I'm very excited to introduce Jaycie Vorhees today. Jaycie is a musical therapist, owner and executive director at Harmony Music Therapy, and today she is going to be talking to us about neuro rehab as well as therapy for mental health, which I was really intrigued about. So with that, Jaycie, take it away. Tell us about you and everything Harmony Music Therapy.
yeah, so I started Harmony Music Therapy in 2009 because I just wanted to be able to work with the clients that I was most passionate about. I had a full-time job at the time working with kiddos with severe and profound disabilities, and am absolutely in love with working with those kids. And I also love mental health and I love neuro rehab and these different areas. So I decided the best way to do that would be to start a practice where we can go out and connect with our community and bring in some of this work working with these clients to help prompt the change and healing in more than just one area.
And Jaycie, what struck me as interesting is I had previously heard that music therapy was beneficial to individuals with Alzheimer's disease and dementia. I did not know the broad extent to how much music therapy is actually used with other health issues, including you mentioned that you do work with kiddos and that you work with, I guess, what you called a neurodivergent population. And that's a whole new world for me. So can you do a little bit of a dive into what that looks like?
Yeah. So the cool thing about music and how it relates to music therapy is that music, it literally stimulates like every part of your brain, depending on what you're doing. They've done MRI and fMRI studies looking at the impact of music on a neurological level, and it impacts motor areas and speech and sensory areas, and of course auditory. But there's so much. We narrow those down to cognitive, sensorimotor, and speech and language, and then of course emotionally music touches our emotions. I think every person has had some kind of experience where music moved them or they connected with a song in some way that said things better than they could with words. And so it's because of that that music we use it in so many different populations. Like, I mean, name it and yes, we can do something there. The most research in music therapy is going to be with Alzheimer's and mental health and neurologic rehabilitation, as well as autism. And then there's other areas as well. There's NICU and medical music therapy. There's music therapists in hospitals and cancer centers helping with pain management and so much. One of the areas that I have tended to specialize, I've been practicing for 16 years, and I love working with kiddos with autism. That's one of my favorite things. If I have a kiddo walk through this door that doesn't have any verbal language and doesn't pay attention, it seems like, to anybody around them, that's my golden client that I love to work with because we can connect through the music. Even if a child is not talking, they don't need to talk to make music. And if I find the right instrument, the right sound, the right way to play with them musically, I tend to get that engagement from them. They start to, maybe we play back and forth on the xylophone and I do a little sound and then they're like, what was that? And then they might come towards me or play something back and we start to have this beautiful interaction. So that's the neurodivergent kiddos. That's a broad term these days for anyone who we don't all develop in the same way. So if their brain is developing a little bit differently, and maybe they move their bodies in a different way, they're speaking in different ways, or developing just differently than we would say is kind of the cookie cutter, then neurodivergent is the word we use for them. And for all of us, I mean, we're all neurodivergent in some way. And yeah, so music can be a great way to bridge anything that we might perceive as a gap or a difference. We can really find each other through the music.
And Jaycie, what I found really interesting and just looking at what you do is, so this that you're doing, it's very hands-on, it's very experiential. It's not from an observer point of view. The kids are actually immersing themselves in making the music.
Yeah. There's a lot of programs out there. The listening program is one, and it's fantastic. It's actually a really cool program. A lot of kids with autism use that, but that's not music therapy. There's specific songs and sounds that the listening program has found that are helpful to kids with autism. And that's not what we do. And then same thing. I mean, a lot of people have seen videos of adults with Alzheimer's or dementia listening to recorded music, and they just come alive. And that's beautiful. And it's so amazing, but it's also not really like the music therapy like the clinical music therapy that we're doing, but it's working because of the same principles. So what we do that's very distinct and different than sound healing and these listening programs is the active relationship of making music with another person. In our training, we talk about there's three different factors involved in our therapy. There's the client and the therapist. And of course, that's always the case with any client therapist relationship. But then there's also the music. And we look at that as a triangle, and each influences the other. And it's not just listening passively to something. We have so many instruments in our space: guitars, pianos, xylophones, boomwhackers, shakers, bells, like anything that you can possibly imagine, we get it. And if I find something I don't have, I get that too, because novel instruments are so engaging and so fascinating for our clients. But yeah, it's about making music together, and we set things up. We have specific goals for every client that we develop, and a treatment plan, and what we're working towards. And then we design interventions and things that we would do to work towards achieving those goals. And we design them using music. So if there's a individual maybe with a brain injury who's working on being able to speak again, we know that there's speech centers in the brain that may not be working right now, but there's shared networks in the brain they may still be able to sing. And so we would set up maybe specific phrases to a melody. Like if they really wish they could say I love you to their spouse again, then we would put that to a melody. I love you. I love you. And there's like a whole protocol and what we do there to be able to get those words out. Even myself, I have a neurological condition that at times my own speech will go or it'll slow down, or I can't get the words out. And yet I can still sing like when that's happening. And it's actually really cool to like feel what that's like in my own body, because my clients experience that all the time. But yeah, music it's interactive, and creating music together is where that real magic happens. So long-winded answer. Sorry.
I love it. And Jaycie, I am totally new to this topic. So I understand there's that client-patient relationship. Do you ever do anything in group settings? And if so, have you noticed that the social learning is something that also impacts the health of the individuals? Do you see a difference between group and individual coaching, if you will? Therapy.
Yeah, absolutely. We do a lot of groups. Our groups are primarily, we're going out into our community, going into existing programs to do that. And they're extremely beneficial. Not only are they more cost effective for the facility, but also for people, kids, adults, whatever that might be, to make music together is an incredibly powerful experience. That social, there's so much that goes into that social and emotional experience of being with a group. We do a lot of groups at a behavioral hospital, and then also in Head Start preschools and schools. We work with the Schools for the Deaf and Blind here in Utah, and yeah, just kids and adults getting to get that interplay of creating music. We'll walk into a room at the behavioral hospital with a bunch of instruments that are set up in a way that anyone who's never played the guitar can pick it up and play right away. We have this device that we use called the Chord Buddy that we put on there, and it's a color-coded thing. They just push the button down, kind of like Guitar Hero, and they suddenly can play these chords. And then we set it up so that we have a lead sheet with colors, and suddenly this whole group of adults who are really, really struggling. I mean, they are in the hospital for suicide attempts or addiction, things like that, or psychosis. They'll be making music together within 5 minutes. And even those who are a little bit hesitant, because that's really vulnerable to pick up a guitar and play, you know, by the end of a group, everybody usually has picked up something, even if it's just the drumsticks to play a beat. But yeah, groups are fantastic because the site is not just all on them. So
Jaycie, so you mentioned something about working with adults, and I imagine this is for not just adults, but the kiddos as well, with regards to expressive therapy as a form of mental health. Now, you and I were having a conversation prior to this interview, and we were talking a little bit about The Body Keeps the Score. It's a well-known book by Bessel van der Kolk. And so talk to me a little bit about that expressive therapy, how the body keeps the score, how this helps reduce or release muscle tension and just, you know, help get rid of that trauma that so many of us do trap inside our own bodies.
yeah, no, that's a great question. One of the interesting things about trauma is that it's stored in a part of the brain that's geographically as far away as you can get as the verbal centers. So it is very difficult to really process trauma through just talking about it. There have to be other things that go into that therapy. And music, again, because it covers everything, it's accessing even unconscious parts of your brain to help process. It's incredibly powerful. So just the act of making music, even if a client, I've had clients that, you know, we brought in a specific song and they were playing on the drum and then just got into this very visceral experience of playing, and just you could see the anger coming out through the drum. As there was one time when I was playing the song She Will Be Loved by Maroon 5, She Will Be Loved, right, as the client's just banging on this drum. And because this is live music, I was able to just take that song, instead of just ending like this is where the song ends, I was able to keep it going and to support that. And I just laid into the guitar, matching what she was doing on the drum, and took off the lyrics for a little while. And we just made music. The music created this space where she could express in a really deep way without words, just physically, musically putting this sound into the world that was expressing what she had been holding inside that she couldn't really verbalize. And as she started to slow down, you know, I started to slow down my music, and it was just those kinds of moments. That's the therapy, right? It's not the things I'm saying. It's not like, I don't know. It's this experience of getting to let your body process, to let it release these things that we don't even sometimes know what our body is holding, until somehow we hit this wall where we're just like, why do I keep getting sick? Or why am I angry all the time? Or why, you know, these things that we can't always pinpoint, but our body just knows. But the music can create a space for us to process that, and to find a way through that, and to do that in a supportive way with a therapist there who can support your music and play and create with you, and then help to bring you down to a more centered state. With that particular experience, as we started to get calm again, she just had tears coming down her face. Her face had been completely red as she was playing that drum. And as she started to calm down, we just took deep breaths, and then it was just silent for a while. And then she verbalized. In that case, the song says, look for the girl with the broken smile, right? And she's like, that's me. Like, people have been trying to help me and I haven't wanted them to. And she's like, and I'm ready to get help now, you know. And through that music making experience, she kind of broke down those walls and found some motivation to keep going.
What you said is just so profound, because I know even the act of reaching out to get help is something that many people do struggle with. So just the fact that this is such a, I feel, innovative modality, at least it is to me. I didn't know about it. I mean, I've personally used hypnotherapy in the past, and it was beneficial to me for the same reasons that I didn't even know what it was that I was dealing with, which I think there's a time and a place for all kinds of therapies. And for me, talk therapy was not it, because I believe talk therapy is good when you know what you're dealing with, but when you have things that are so subconscious, that doesn't really help. And I have heard of EMDR as well. I've never personally used it. And again, for the same reasons that I think sometimes when you're dealing with the unknowns, it's so great that there's other types of healing modalities out there that people can get into. I've also used tapping, and that was very beneficial. I don't know if you've ever done the tapping, but to me, this just opened up a whole new world of healing modalities. So I think it's so neat that you do this.
Yeah, no, I love it. I'm so passionate about it. And I part of the reason I went into it is music was my language growing up. And so it makes sense to me that music can be a door for us to see things more clearly, to feel more deeply, and to find healing.
And I should share, my husband actually is a musician. He plays guitar and he's very good at it. He does it by hobby, not by profession. He is in a couple of different music groups. And now that you're describing the health benefits and the mental health benefits that music has, I can completely see why and how he immerses himself so much into making music. It definitely is an outlet. And he's actually in a couple of different groups. And in one group that he's in, they actually make music CDs and they upload them to SoundCloud. And I know just the taking an emotion and producing something to release something tangible out into the world, and that entire creative process is such a sense of gifting something to the world and creating legacy in the process, because it's something that will live on beyond you.
No, it's so true.
Yeah.
I love writing songs. That's like one of the core competencies of a music therapist. You've got to be able to write songs, because we'll write it just like in the moment. But yeah, there's so many songs that when I write a song for myself, it's usually because I'm going through something, like that's when the songs come out. And then I have this piece, like this representation of this period of my life, difficult things that I've experienced or beautiful things I've experienced. And yeah, music, it's amazing. And I love that your husband uses it like on a regular basis for himself. I mean, there's so much science behind that too. Like people are talking a lot about the vagus nerve these days and understanding more about what that does. And just singing, it stimulates the vagus nerve. Music making with other people releases dopamine and endorphins and all this. In fact, one of the things that we do as a team of music therapists, I mean, we're making music all the time, but to play your favorites and to play it for fun is its own thing. So we have jam nights.
That's very cool.
It's like, and it's so bonding for us. Like our team is so much closer now than we ever have been since we started jamming together. Yeah, music it's like this magic power. It's amazing.
Are all of you part of a band? Are you in the band together?
We'd like to call ourselves a band. No, our jam nights will basically just be like, someone will be like, yeah, let's play Backstreet Boys. And so we like pull up the Backstreet Boys and like play it. We don't ever like perfect it. We just jam. Like, let's just play, make up some harmonies, just play for the sake of creating. And it's so fun.
That's great. Yeah. So you improvise.
Yes.
A lot. Yeah. And so you mentioned the word create. So tell me, in the context of the patients that you work with, how does that creative process help them? I imagine self-esteem, self-identity, self-awareness comes into play a lot with what you do. So how does the creative process help individuals in that manner?
Yeah. I mean, there's nothing quite like having your sound. Like when you have an instrument, there's so many instruments that we have that we've specifically chosen because you can't play a wrong note with it. And to get that into somebody's hands and be like, what does Lucy sound like right now? Like, what do you sound like right now? Like, do you sound like just one note? Or are we going to do a couple? Like, and to have someone have a totally different representation of them in that moment, to be able to create something that other people can hear and will listen and respond to, is really powerful. A game that I love to do is to have a call and response. So we might have, if this would be in a group session or even in one-on-one, but have someone have a drum and everyone else has drums too. And the person, like there's someone that's the caller or who's it, and they might play a rhythm like boom, and everyone plays it back, boom, 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 and then they change it. So there's so many things that we can do to validate what people create and the sounds that they're making, the representation of this piece of who they are. I also love to do songwriting with my clients, even just like with kiddos. Like we'll have a song and I'll just throw out, be like, all right, today what are we gonna do? Play the drums, play the drums, play the drums, play the drums, and then what are we gonna do? Right? It could be as simple as that, or we go into more depth. We've had people rewrite the lyrics to Taylor Swift songs to fit with what they're experiencing, but yeah, just to have some kind of tangible part of them out in the world. And if we want like an artifact of that, something that's going to last longer, we often will record. If a client writes a song or we make something together, we can record that, send that to their family, have them share this piece of them with other people.
So, do you find that when patients are replacing their own words in songs, it is a little less vulnerable for them than expressing from scratch if they're working within that framework?
Yeah. I'll usually start there. We call it lyric replacement, and that can be a really, really nice way for someone to get their foot in the door with realizing the power of putting their own words into something. I'll maybe do that with like Imagine from John Lennon. In fact, I don't know if this guitar is tuned, but just to give an example, almost. So I recently had someone replace the words to this song, and she said,
imagine there's no trauma. It's easy if you try. Nobody hurting or crying. Above us only sky.
Right. And it went on, and it was just, she wrote the words while I played the music in the background. And then as I sang it back to her, she just started to cry, right? Like just this beautiful experience. So then we could take something like that and maybe go a step further. If I'm doing songwriting, we find ways to structure it so it doesn't have to be scary. You know, maybe I have a chord structure already, or have them choose from a few different styles, and I can really help guide someone through creating the words and things that matter to them.
That was beautiful, by the way. I was just listening and I was completely immersed in your vocals and just the musicality of it. So I can see how that would be such a powerful experience, especially someone that's feeling particularly vulnerable and somewhat has the music that already exists as a shield of protection, is how I envisioned it. You're not completely out there naked.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was powerful. Jaycie, what else would you like to share with the audience that I did not know to ask you?
Oh my gosh, there's so much with music therapy. So I haven't talked a whole lot about like neurological rehabilitation is a whole other area. That was what I got my master's in. And they've done some amazing research in that area, specifically with stroke patients, Parkinson's, people with brain injury. And, you know, it can be the emotional experience there as well. But also we've done things that are just straight up like physical therapy, co-treating. So with the physical therapist there, sometimes we'll go in, and if they're working with a patient on gait rehabilitation, so learning to walk again after a stroke, you can just imagine a physical therapist working with them. They're like, okay, let's walk. And then a music therapist comes in to co-treat, and it's like, what's your favorite song? You like, let's see, what's one we've done is the House of the Rising Sun. So we might find out, like, we'd first see how fast they're walking. So maybe it's this speed, right? And then we sing, there is a house in New Orleans. haven't done that song in a while. I don't remember the chords.
Great.
Yeah.
Right? Keep going. Keep going.
So, but that music just creates this like a structure, right? And it's fun suddenly to play and to walk. So we'll see patients that will improve by 50% really within like the first couple minutes of a music therapist being there. And we'll often just walk backwards with the patient as they're doing that, and the PT is there supporting them. Same thing with occupational therapy. We've done work with people who are trying to regain use of their arms, like reaching up. So hold 2 drums up in the air, and they have to reach across, and they're playing to a beat. And always it's their favorite music, because we find, and research shows too, that patient preferred music is going to have significantly more results than just coming in with whatever. So they're more motivated, more engaged. It becomes fun to play. And so yeah, it's amazing what music can do to not only motivate, but also literally facilitate, because it's sending these rhythmic signals to the brain through the form of what we call entrainment. So when things entrain, they get in sync with each other. So in this case, the body walking, the steps, those things are getting in sync with the rhythm. And again, I mentioned earlier that I have this neurological disorder myself, that this just started in just a few months ago, and it's been a really difficult but amazing experience, because even just today, I was having some difficulty walking this morning. But I was like, I'm just going to go like on this walk in the mountains and just see how I do. And I wasn't doing great. And then I turned on my music, and I have these specific playlists at specific speeds. And when it was at the right speed, suddenly like, okay, I can do this. I can keep going. And my body responded. And I'm like, I know what motor pathways are getting stimulated right now. And my body's in training. And it's totally, it works. It's incredible what music can do for our brains and our bodies and our emotions.
Yeah, and I just completely love the energy behind everything that you're saying. And I picked up on the word that it's fun. So it's not something that patients dread. I could definitely see looking forward to a therapy session because it's fun. And I think that's a whole novel way of looking at therapy. And something else you said also resonated with me. I actually run, and I love running in the mountains on trails. And I know for me, sometimes, I just try to take to pay attention to my breathing and not listen to music. And most of the times I do listen to music, and I do notice the times I listen to music, my cadence is a lot faster. When I time myself, I do a lot better. So I definitely know I am a runner that likes to have music on her runs.
Yeah,
and I know that's, a different conversation for runners, the purist versus I want my headset. So, but I love music when I run. I also listen to audibles, sometimes books on audio, but definitely music helps me when I need that little extra kickstart when I'm struggling to get there on the trail myself. It's like, I'll just listen to fun music and then it'll all be okay.
Yeah. No, I mean, as long as it's like an intentional choice, right? Why am I listening to music right now? I love hiking and just listening to the sounds of the birds and the river and my feet crunching on the trail. Like, I love that. But there's times that I want to have a different kind of experience, and all the experiences are valid. Today it happened to be that I literally couldn't walk very well, and so the music helped me. But yeah, it boosts your energy in a way that we can't really replace with something else. Especially if it's a song that you're like, yeah, I love this one. Let's just go. And there's one, Unstoppable. I don't remember which artist, but there's one that I listen. It's like the perfect running cadence for me that I'll listen to that one. I'm like, okay, I got this. I can keep going, And that's, it's a metaphor too for what music can do in so many other areas. It can help us to feel that confidence, to feel like, okay, there is some hope here.
That is so amazing. Yeah, and so for our audience, Harmony Music Therapy is located in Utah. I will provide the information. So for those of you that live out of state, you're out of luck. You're going to have to move to Utah so that you can get assistance from Jaycie and her team. Jaycie, any last words for our audience before we conclude our chat today?
I would say just if you don't currently have a significant relationship with music, spend a little bit of time with that. Listen, take 5 minutes a day and listen to some of the songs you used to love growing up, or listen to a new artist, or find something meaningful for you in music. If you've always wanted to play an instrument, go take lessons, something. But music does so much for us on such a deep level that we can't quite quantify. We're trying to quantify it, and we're doing a lot, but it's so much more than we could ever measure. So yeah, find ways to make that matter in your own life and see what results happen for you.
Thank you so much, Jaycie Vorhees, and thank you, audience, for being here on another episode of Your Health is Your Greatest Wealth.